I'm Edward Warfield, the publisher of CityBiz, and I'm honored today to interview Michael Mufson, the managing partner at Mufson, Howe, Hunter. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you for having me, Edwin.
We did an interview a couple of years ago. Can you give us an update of where Mufson, Howe, Hunter is today in terms of bankers, locations, and just a quick snapshot?
Sure. We pretty much have maintained a relative size. We're 18 professionals today, of which 16 are in Center City, Philadelphia. And we haven't announced it. We'll announce it in a week, but a few months ago we've expanded into the Washington, D.C. market with two professionals. So that will be our first expansion of people outside of Philadelphia. So we're very excited about that.
And so, what trends are you seeing? Where do you see institutional funds flowing? How important are recaps? I know that you've got a long history in family-owned businesses. Yes, so give us a state of the deal-making world.
Yeah, thanks. The markets have been very difficult over the last 12 to 18 months as we came out of COVID and rates started increasing. But we're seeing a little light at the end of the tunnel where rates are coming down, which always is a forward indicator for the M&A market, certainly middle markets and M&A in general. And our strategy has always been to work with what we call first to market family closely held businesses. These are companies that 20 years ago would have probably have gone public. Many of them, when it was plentiful and there was an infrastructure of investment banks that took companies public. I remember when I started in business 35 years ago, you needed $1 million in net income. Well, today, companies going public are $500 million of pre-money value. So that market's no longer there. So where you get liquidity if you're a private company, you do it in recap. So our market is recaps and primarily selling to strategics and private equity funds.
And can you highlight some of the recent transactions that your firm's been involved in?
Yeah, we'll announce a deal. We sold a company to a wholly owned subsidiary, a software company out of the Washington office. Their first transaction, a software company to a wholly owned subsidiary of Boeing Aircraft, and that will be announced probably in a week. We're also about to announce next week another transaction. We've been busy with franchisees, large franchisee systems within a franchisor. And it happens to be some of the automotive services companies. So this one will be announced. It's interesting. We're finding private equity who quickly extricated themselves from looking at the automotive services because of EV, electric vehicles. But really over the last year, the slope of the line going up has kind of bent down towards a more flattened purchase of electrical vehicles. So I think investors are looking at the ICE market, internal combustion engine market, as having a much longer tail to it. And we're seeing private equity looking at some of the franchise systems where the franchisees are big enough that typically these are companies with 7, 8, 10 million plus of EBITDA, which are very good cash flowers, low capex, and so we're working on a couple of those. One will be announced next week. We're also in the Philadelphia market. Another company of ours that we worked on as a co-advisor on was Unified Door. We did a recap for Unified Door with an outstanding private equity group, Dunes Point Capital, and the old second bite of the apple occurred for the company. We did this about 4.5 years ago, and they just did another recap and at a very, very high return to the shareholders of the company. And they're in Pennsauken. Also, another recent deal was I&I Sling, an industrial products company out of western suburbs of Pennsylvania, or Philadelphia, excuse me. And they were acquired by a company in private equity group in Chattanooga, Tennessee, River Associates, another great group. So, we've been busy despite the markets being quiet.
So retail consumers has always been a big part of the Mufson Howe Hunter business. Can you share some of those deals that you want to, just highlight?
Yeah, retail and consumer, in the consumer space, one of our more fun deals we did was Squatty Potty. That was it was owned by a DC based private equity group. The company was based in Utah. A lot of people know it because it was on Shark Tank. And basically, it's a bathroom product that, as we started this, most people remember Howard Stern advertising it, and it was a very successful deal for this private equity fund, and it was acquired by a much larger direct-to-consumer company. But over the years, we've done a lot of restaurants, retailers. It's been quiet of late. The consumer going into COVID, during COVID, it really kind of exponentially increased as we stayed home. So, garden products and furniture and things that we were using in the house and food all took off. And then the consumer, we're reading it now, has been a little light in buying in the market. So a number of deals we had to pull. We're hoping to get them back to market. But right now, in that space, we're seeing some restaurants we're doing, and again franchisees, and also in the automotive services space.
So in the introduction, you talked about your new office. You had a new hire down in Florida last year, Gary Valoric. Yeah, tell us about your geographical expansion, and tell us a little bit more about the DC office. The DC market. I mean, is a very competitive market, but it looks like you've hired a senior banker to take over.
Yeah, Joe Golden is heading up the office, and Joe could have been in Chicago. I mean, we were just kindred spirits in how we look at the market. And his director with him is Scott Kendrick, who was also at a couple of firms in D.C. So what we're doing in D.C., I shouldn't say everyone, but most firms in D.C. have a very strong practice in government services. We have that, but it's also, there's a lot in the D.C. marketplace. We do construction services. That's a big market. We do other companies, distribution, restaurants, consumer, and business services, as well as industrial. So I think we bring to that market a more generalist focus, again, looking at companies that are typically family held, typically 5 to 10 million plus in EBITDA, and really want an advisor with them who can take them through the recap process or the sale process. And so that's kind of how we're positioning ourselves. And we think that is, even though DC is very competitive, most companies aren't focusing on a lot of the industries that we are.
And are there any other members of the team that you'd like to highlight?
Well, we have got Gary Valoric, who is in the Philadelphia market. He's got homes and here and in Florida. So, and Gary's been a big plus for us in with his relationships and in business development. And but we've been building up staff here. We've got a next good layer of directors here that are being developed and groomed, and we're building staff. And every time a market dips, and if you are building an investment bank, you tend to see the benefits as it upticks. And we're hoping, and we're expecting, and we've been discussing this, that the markets are improving, and we think 24 into 25 are going to be very, very strong markets. Why? Because there's record levels of private equity capital. There are record levels of private credit, and the private credit markets have just ballooned, and they need somewhere to go. and they need to put monies to work, and they put monies to work by funding M&A. And with rates down, our client base is starting to see better valuation, so they're moving ahead. And so, the wheels of progress are starting to grind, and it's interest rates dropping with the plethora of capital on the side. It's not more complicated than that.
So, is there any part of your personal journey or the firm's journey that you'd like to share with us that you haven't shared with us?
My personal journey is the longer you do this, the better you get. So, I've been doing this for 35 plus years, so I'm finally getting good at it, and so I'm looking forward to the coming market, because I really do think it will be a record kind of level M&A marketplace, and in the middle markets. Because there's just so many baby boomers who have started businesses and running the gamut of inheriting businesses, starting businesses that are in their 60s, some in their 70s, and they're needing a liquidity event. All their wealth is tied up. So the only way they can get it, for the most part, a liquidity event would be to sell to private equity, which has been driving the growth of private equity. Is that because taking public companies private in a going private transaction, there aren't that many good middle market public companies, and there, in my opinion, are too few public companies today. But there's just a tremendous amount of population in what I'm describing: business services and business services, industrial, technology services. Which we haven't talked to you about, but that's run by a partner here, Brendan Eck, who's outstanding, and that's been an area that it's been a little slow. That we expect that to pick up in the IT services space in this coming cycle.
Well, Michael, I always enjoy hearing about your successes, and I look forward to being apprised of your expansion into new markets and new cities and new opportunities. So.
Yeah, and we appreciate your publication. It's the first thing I read in the morning, so thank you. And we've enjoyed our multi-year relationship with you. So, City Biz, look forward to talking to you more.
Thank you, Michael.